Following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
By tomorrow, I will rule the world!
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone.
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
Well, I must have not been paying attention.
I don't know what happened.
Yep.
We have to stop putting the title in, too. Hey, how you guys doing? My name's Tom Duggan here at the Paying Attention Podcast. There it is.
It works in this one, not in the other one.
David Consoli will be happy.
Sorry.
David Consoli will be happy.
It's that white shot.
And you know what? Normally I would be like, we got to fix that. At this point, I don't care.
I do.
You know?
It's
You're a perfectionist, that's why. I'm trying to show off my new shirt.
I don't like
my
it.
new, you don't like it?
Well, I like what it says. I like what it stands for.
They're not even a sponsor, and I'm going to promote the crap out of them. That's the thing about me. Like, a lot of people think that, like, oh, you only promote certain businesses because they spend money with you. And the vast majority of the businesses that I promote do not spend money with me. I'd like it if they would.
That's wrong. That's not a business mentality. This is a business. I always tell you.
I know.
Stop.
All my friends tell me I leave way too much money on the table by promoting people for free.
Yeah, you do. Too much.
But Granite State, where is it? Granite State shooting range.
You know what I do with my podcast? When people come to my
the
podcast,
left and right is killing me.
I know. You know what I do with my podcast? I say a thank you email, and then I send a link for a donation if they like.
Okay.
That's not a bad idea.
My buddy John Gately's watching.
Oh, yeah?
You want to talk about a good podcast? I don't think I've missed one of his podcasts like in the last.
Oh, then I gotta go see who's watching on Facebook.
On Twitter. He's on Twitter. I wish we could find a way to podcast on Twitter. That would be great.
Yeah. I think you have to pay like a premium
I'm
or
not
something.
paying. Although it's going to Elon, I might not mind.
Let me know when you're ready
He
to
had
go.
me on his podcast, and the guest before me was that guy from Mass Fiscal Alliance that spent 4 years excoriating me for recruiting Diana DeZoglio to run for state rep because she was a Democrat and I was a traitor and I was a rhino, even though I'm not a Republican. I think you had to be a Republican to be a rhino. And now all of a sudden, every press release I get is Diana DeZoglio is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
She's all over like the Republican.
And I'm like, well,
coalition.
it's good to see you guys finally caught up to me, but I never got an apology for, all the tremendous insults. All right, let's get this show on the road. Hi, how you guys doing? My name's Tom Duggan here with the Paying Attention Podcast. High atop the Golden Seal Apothecary. Actually, there's 4 businesses downstairs. I don't like any of them, but I'm rooting for the Golden Seal Apothecary because they're a brand new. What do you call it? She's laughing so hard she can't answer my question.
Stop.
They're a pharmacy. They're like apothecary is just an old time word for a pharmacy, and I'm rooting for them because right across the street is my office, and every time I look out, it's always empty down there. Like they have no business at all, and so I feel so bad for them because they're on Main Street, North Andover. If you have a walk-in business, don't be buying storefront. Don't be renting storefront property on Main Street, North Andover. Nobody comes down here. Nobody.
I mean, it depends. If you're like a dentist,
well,
people are gonna come to you.
Maybe,
make
but
an
I'm talking about
appointment.
you're looking for foot traffic. Can you
foot
bounce me up
traffic,
a little bit? Just
yeah, sure.
If you can, just a little bit more. Good,
Okay.
perfect, right there. So, anyways, we want to give Golden Seal Apothecary. Let's talk about our sponsors, and then we get the greatest show. I think if I think back the last 6 months, this is probably going to be our best show.
You think so?
I think
I'm
so.
really excited. I didn't sleep last
The whole
night.
thing with Debo and Kelly was great.
Yeah, that
but
was
I think
really
this
good.
beats it.
Yeah.
And by the way, those of you who watched our show on the public records dispute between myself and the city of Lawrence, the Secretary of State has ruled in my favor.
I know. I saw that.
So we are going to be getting those documents as I predicted, South Lawrence Counselor, as I predicted when you walked away from me. So, anyways, we have a great show today. Let's talk about our sponsors real quick. Century 21 McLennan Real Estate, the Zany Pesci Law Office in Methuen. By the way, Jana Zany Pesci started her own damn show.
No way.
Started her own damn show. Can you believe it?
Her office space is so beautiful. It's so endless.
She said, and then so I gave her a hard time, and she goes, "Well, I'll still come on your show, Tom." I'm like, "You're the most beautiful woman alive.
What is the name of her show?
Why does anyone want to come to my show to see you when they can see you on your own show every week?" Like you've totally taken away. You coming here was a reason for people to tune in. That was the reason I brought you in. And now that you've got your own show with that Nick DeZoglio guy, it's something. It's this mamby-pamby, silly, like positive Methuen stuff, you know.
Okay.
Oh, you know, student of the month at the Oliver School, all that stuff. Anyways, I'm going to mock them because she should be my co-host and not be doing her own show.
She should.
With Nick DeZoglio, of all people. Nick DeZoglio.
Stop it. Behave.
At least I like him. At least it's not like Jim McCarty, but come on, Nick DeZoglio over me? Listen, I know I'm not a good-looking guy, but I'm way better looking than that guy.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Marston and Son Construction, EIS Investigation and Gun Trading, Tomo and Shaken Seafood. We haven't been to Shaken Seafood in a while, but we were at Tomo's last week. We had a brand new...
Inside joke.
if only you guys could see what was going on off camera. We were at Tomo's. He's got a brand new waitress, I think, for the first time in 5 years that I've been there.
Oh, okay.
That he's got a very high retention at Tomo. The people who work
Yeah.
there are always there. It's like you go to a lot of restaurants and you get always a new
I
waitress.
have
That's
a
not
group
the
of
case.
friends who go every month and
Yeah.
always ask for the same chef.
Love Tomo. Love Shaken Seafood. Pleasant Valley Landscaping Contractors. Clear Path for Veterans New England AFC Urgent Care. I'm having lunch with Zaka today. We're going to Sevmars to have
Nice.
the kibbe wrap is excellent.
Yummy.
And she, by the way, and they're not a sponsor either, but Sevmar Restaurant and Jocelyn by Sevmar and Methuen.
So good. Oh, my God.
Lobster ravioli with a cream sauce.
They have that?
It's not even on the menu, but you get asked for it.
Oh, my God.
Tell them I said to ask for it. They'll make it for you. She told me
Okay.
that. It's the most unbelievable dish. It's better than, I hate to say this because I love Mike Agricola, but it's better than the butternut squash ravioli at Salvatore's. And that takes a lot. Like, you got to really work hard to beat that.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
I should go. They invited me to girls' night
Girls'
on
night,
Wednesdays.
yeah.
So maybe
I was
going
going to go to girls' night, too, with my camera. Though.
No, they told you not to go.
They did.
They did. Remember, she said, "Do not."
She said, you better not show up here, she said. Prime Insurance, the Doug Mercurio Law Office. Doug Mercurio was our co-host at the Bash this year. We're going to make him full host next year.
Yay. When is he coming on the show?
I was going through we got to get him. We have to get him on. Doug, if you want to come on, give me a date. I was going through some of the video that we haven't released yet of the Bash this year, and I was really impressed at the way he commanded the room. Like, he did a really good job.
Yeah, he owned the place.
And he told me he was gonna, but everyone says they're good at stuff, but until you see them do it, everyone thinks they're good at stuff, but until you see him. And I saw him do it, and he did a great job. W3ON, Enterprise Bank, a free shout out to Enterprise Bank and all my girls at Enterprise Bank. God, I love them so much. I actually I could go through the drive-thru and deposit money. I actually get out of my car as fat and disabled as I am
So I just want to tell you.
and hobble in just so I can see them.
I want to tell you, you have them in the first, like you mentioned them first, and you mentioned them last.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed.
Because I love them.
Just-
4-star lighting, Enterprise Bank, and a free shout out to JG's Ice Cream. Boy, do we have a great show for you today. Holy crap.
Please share, everyone. Like, comment. Let us know you're watching. Thank
So, Brian DePena is a friend of mine. He actually made his announcement. He was running for mayor 4 years ago at my bash, which surprised all of us. And I didn't think he had a shot at winning, and so I kind of stayed out of the campaign. I mean, I helped him behind the scenes, but publicly I have to be good to everybody because we sponsor debates and stuff. And even though I have a horse in the race, if you can't tell that I have a horse in the race, I feel like I'm doing my job, and nobody knew at the time. Then he got in, and we've had a great relationship ever since. But I noticed that I think it's Wednesday or Tuesday, he does a live interview on Spanish language radio.
On Wednesday.
But he hasn't been here in 2 years. So I called him 2 weeks ago and said, hey, what's the story with that? Why aren't you coming on the podcast? He's like, oh, Tommy, I'm just busy being mayor. I'm mayoring. He kept saying I'm mayoring. It's now a new word. And I said, listen, I'll tell you what. I'll come to your office. I want to do an interview with you because I know how you feel about certain topics, but you never say it publicly. And he said, you're going to get me in trouble? I said, I'm absolutely going to get you in trouble.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to get you in trouble. And he said, remember, I'm on the ballot this year. And I said, listen, you need to say publicly what you say privately. When we go out and we have lunch and you tell me things, I fall off my chair that you're saying that. And I'm like, why don't you say that publicly? And one day he said to me, because no one's ever asked.
Really?
So I said, a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, called him up. I go, so how about I'll come to your office with Intern Girl, and I'm going to do an interview with you because you said that there's certain topics you don't talk about publicly because no one's ever asked. So I'm going to ask. And he said, you're not going to get me in trouble? I said, I absolutely am. He said, what is the topic? I said, I want to talk to you about immigration and ICE doing raids and cleaning Lawrence out of criminals who are here illegally.
Yeah.
And he laughed for a few seconds because he thought I was kidding. And then he said, you serious? And I said, yeah, I'm serious. He goes, what time? What time do you want to be here on Tuesday? Boy, do I have an interview for you guys. You know, let me put it this way. When you put on CNN, MSNBC, you read the Boston Globe, the New York Times, it seems like the only people in the world that could possibly be cheering on ICE while they're in while they're going into major American cities arresting illegal alien criminals, the only people that do that are white supremacists, right? It's always the Klan. It's always a white supremacist. You got to be a racist if you're cheering on ICE. If you think it's a good thing that the immigration, what does ICE stand for? Immigration Customs Enforcement are out there rounding up illegal aliens who have criminal warrants. And, of course, the people who side with the criminals will always say, well, you must be a racist.
Yep.
Because what about due process? As if illegal aliens are supposed to get due process to be deported.
Illegal. You're breaking the law.
You're breaking the law. And you get if you're an illegal alien and you rob a bank, you get due process before you go to jail. Mm-hmm. Or, maybe they find you're not guilty, you don't go to jail, but you get due process before you get sentenced to do anything. Mm-hmm. But not when you're getting deported to your home country. And there are actually people in this country that are so dumb that they think that we're supposed to go to Guatemala and get that guy Abrego Garcia and bring him back. He's the citizen of Guatemala or El Salvador. He's the citizen of El Salvador. Can you pull me up just a little bit more?
Yeah.
He's a citizen of El Salvador in an El Salvadorian prison because the president of El Salvador has deemed him to be a terrorist. And there are people in this country that want us to kidnap him and bring him back.
The Maryland dad?
The Maryland dad, right? So in this environment where anytime somebody says that we just want to enforce the law, you're a bad person.
I don't think that's the case, Tom. You know what? I feel like it's not fair. As a citizen, I have to pay taxes. If I break the laws, I have to go to jail. I have to pay the price. Mm-hmm. But then we have people coming here who are not paying taxes. They're getting away with it. They're here illegally.
Judges letting them out the back door. Judges letting them out.
Before me?
Right.
Why?
Right.
Why? When I contribute so much to this country, to my community, to my neighborhood. Why? That's not fair. Because
the Democrat Party, I'm going to get to this in 1 second, the Democrat Party doesn't care about the American citizen. They only care about replacing the American citizen because American citizens aren't voting for Democrats anymore. So they're trying to replace us. But more than that, and this is something that we talked about, but it's not in the clips that we have today, is the reason why Democrats want, and I even asked Brian Shortley when he was here last week, when I said, tell us the quiet part out loud. Why do the Democrats want illegal aliens? And he wouldn't say it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say it. The reason why Democrats want it, because here's what happens. The number of congressmen that a state has is based on the population, not the number of citizens. So let's say that we bring in 100,000 more illegal aliens into Massachusetts tomorrow. After the next census, we get an additional congressman. Now, why is that important? Because presidents are chosen by the Electoral College, and the number of electors they get from that state is the number of senators plus the number of congressmen. So
11 here, right?
I think it's 11, right? Mm-hmm. But we're losing 2 because people are fleeing, which is why Healy's trying to bring in illegal aliens and trying to keep them here and putting them up in hotels and spending all kinds of money to keep them here because she wants us to have more people in Congress, which means more Democrats, and the next time there's an election for president, Massachusetts has more electors that will go to the Democrat. So they're trying to stack the deck so the Republicans will never get the White House ever again. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to stack the Electoral College. No one will say it out loud. I will say it out loud. And the reason why no one will say it out loud is because all these politicians do. And I'm going to exempt Mr. Shortsleeve because he's a Republican. But most of them in Massachusetts are Democrats, and they're all in on. They know exactly what it's about, and they won't say it out loud. They make it like, because we care about people, and we're humans, and they're fleeing oppression. And, yeah, that might be the case for some of them. That's true. There are a lot of people who are good, decent people who want to live here because it's better for their family.
I feel like politics are more closer to, like, a business mentality than it is like
they'll lie to you to benefit in some way.
Yeah, than a human, human being mentality. So
I sat down with Brian DePena, and boy, did he not disappoint.
Oh, yeah.
He did not disappoint. I thought I was going to throw the tough question at him, and he was going to do the pretty language of politics and, like you'll see in this first clip, I used the phrase illegal alien, and he repeated it back. Like he didn't say, no, they're what do the Democrats use? undocumented migrants. You know, he didn't pull any of that shit, right? He
said criminal.
He's a real person. Brian DePena is a real person, and he's up for re-election this year. And this may cost him votes. It may get him votes. I don't know because, you never know how. So a lot of times I'll come in and I'll play a clip thinking it's going to go one way, and then I go home and I see that the response on the comments are the opposite of what I thought it was going to be. So you never know. However, I know one thing. By the time I'm done playing this first clip, the Democrats in Boston's head are going to explode.
All right, let's play it.
So here's the very beginning. Here's the first one, and this is the one where I.
So I wanted to know first what you thought about the federal government, the feds, ICE coming into Lawrence, rounding up criminals and deporting them. I know you're a lot more conservative than most people in your party, so I thought this would be a good question to start with.
I know the immigrant community, is the preoccupation now is a high level, but I think 99% people the federal government follow is a criminal. If you see news in some time in different case, is somebody the federal ICE looking for somebody and ask you for document. If you don't have, take it. But that's not exactly ICE looking for good people, good person in the community. It's directed to criminal people, and that's good. That's good for community, because for many years, many people have a crime, have a bad record, and stay in the community. Now
so you're saying when ICE comes in, they're not just looking for people who are illegal; they're looking for criminals.
Yes,
and you support that.
I support that.
Can you?
Wow! I can already hear Pavel dialing my number as we're sitting here.
Oh my God!
Can you believe it? Holy
I don't know.
crap.
Your phone was on Do Not Disturb. You're getting calls already.
It's bouncing already. It's crazy. He must be a white supremacist.
Oh.
He must be a member of the Klan, right? He must be he just doesn't want those brown-skinned people coming to America, right?
No.
Right? Wow. By the way, I know of at least 3 state representatives who are also Dominican who feel exactly the same way, but will never do an interview like this. They will never say it out loud, ever, ever, ever. And I asked them why. And the reason I'm not giving you any names is because people tell me things off the record, and I don't want them to stop talking to me. But I'll tell you what they said. Every one of them to the person, almost word for word, said, if I were to do that, I would never get a committee assignment. They would primary me in the next election, and I would not be an elected official a year from now. That's the answer that I got. That their own party would kill them for it. And here's the Dominican mayor of Lawrence. He came here legally, started a business, started a hardware store. Made enough money from the hardware store to start a tire store on Broadway, which is still on Broadway, Tanaus Tires.
There's actually 2, I think, now.
And not only that, but like I broke down one day in Boston, and I called AAA, and they told me 2:30 in the morning. They were open. There was nobody in there. They took me. In 5 minutes, I was driving home, right? And they charged me, I don't know, it was like $30, I think, for the tire, right? So here's a guy who was a businessman, came to the country legally, started a family, did the right thing, paid taxes,
contributed to his
contributed to the community, then ran for city council at large, topped the ticket. The first year.
Before that, he used to run some organizations here in Lawrence. He was a volunteer.
Well, he was on the Hispanic Week Board of Directors with me back in whenever it starts with 19, it gets very fuzzy.
In the 1900s.
Right, and I'm going to say like 19. Well, I got elected to the school board in 95, so it was probably 96 and 97.
Okay.
That I was on the Hispanic Week Board of Directors with him, and we were on a couple of other organizations too. And I can't remember what they are, so I don't want to bore you. But Brian came and did it the right way, and you see the color of his skin. There's no white supremacist in that guy. Okay. And his English isn't really that good, which is why we did the subtitles.
He might identify as a white man, though.
Maybe he does, right? A white woman, maybe.
A white woman.
You never know. But so and we got. If you think that clip was good, wait till you see the next 3. Here's a guy that became the mayor of Lawrence, who really is there for everybody. Now you can like him or not like him. You can disagree with his positions on the way he paves roads or the way he hires people or the people that he appoints to positions. I've got some serious problems with some of the things that He has done, hiring Kelly Frazier and a few other things.
Nobody's perfect. He made a mistake.
But here's the thing. This guy is so friggin' good that right-wing crazy guy like Tom Duggan, right-wing Trump-supporting Tom Duggan walked out of that meeting. He almost had me convinced to give driver's licenses to illegal aliens. Like he did. We walked out. Intern Bill and I walked out. We got in the car and I turned to her and said,
I never thought of it that way.
Maybe we should give driver's licenses to illegal aliens. And then I went, wait a minute. I'm stopping myself in the face going, wait a minute. Am I under his spell? Like, what happened? But let me tell you something else about Brian DePena.
Are you having a hard time?
Let me tell you something about Brian DePena. When we walked in, intern girl said to him, oh, my relative, I'm not going to use the name, but my relative is so-and-so. And he said, oh, I really like that guy. And she said, yeah, but he doesn't really like you that much. And you know what he said? Yeah. That's okay. I like him anyway. That's Brian DePena. Now, again, you can agree with him or disagree with him on issues. You can hate the way he's running the city, but you can't take what you just saw. You can't take that away from him. You can't take away that this guy doesn't have a vindictive bone in his body, and he's willing to say the quiet part out loud that many other Dominicans, many other minority state reps, many other minority senators feel the same exact way, but don't have the balls to say it. They don't have the balls to say it because they're not there for you. They're there to climb the political ladder. They're there to get a committee chairmanship so they can double their pay. Most people don't know that. If you get a committee chairmanship, if you're a state rep, you become a committee chairman, you get more money. Your pay increases. So if you're really, really kissing the ass of the speaker and you're voting for free food for illegals and bringing more in and giving them free transportation and whatever, abortion on demand up until 3rd grade, you're going to get 5 committee assignments. You're going to triple your pay. And that's how they control you. So the ones that won't say what Brian says, it's because they're not there to be there for their constituents. They're there to climb the political ladder and make more money. That's why they're there. And I'm not going to say anybody by name because a lot of them are my friends. But it's just the way that it is. The next clip that we have, by the way, if you thought that was good, we're just warming up.
You sure you want to play this one? It's similar to...
Is it the same? Well, let's see if it's the same one. If it's the same one, we'll bounce to the next one.
Well, no, this is a
your
little
party,
longer.
the people who run your party, the Democrat Party, paint anybody who supports the deportation of criminals as white supremacist, racist, bad people. And here you are, the Dominican mayor of Lawrence, Dominican immigrant yourself, and you're telling me you support ICE coming in and rounding up illegal aliens who are criminals and deporting them. How do you feel about your party abandoning the people? Well, let me ask you, how do you feel about the party abandoning you and the people of Lawrence? The majority of the people in Lawrence believe the way you do, don't they?
Listen, I think that's the reason President Trump win in the past election.
Wow.
Because include many Democrats don't support political open border for everybody. The immigration in any country need regulation. Never you stop immigration. Somebody jumping the border.
Yeah.
But you need control. The problem is in the last 4 years, the immigration department listen what is his job, what is he compromise to the nation, and it's impossible you keep bottom open for everybody enter illegal. No, you need control, because if you don't have control, the bad people think back and say, oh, it's my opportunity for jumping and continue doing crime in America, because if you're doing bad in Guatemala, it's different when you're doing bad in America.
Wow.
I think he's going to get a call by Donald Trump
I think I just heard
tonight.
an explosion on Beacon Hill just about 5 seconds ago. Holy crap.
I think Donald Trump might call him tonight. I don't know.
Listen, I don't even know what I can say about that. He said it all.
He did say it
And
all.
it's coming from a guy. Lawrence has about 90,000 people in it if you include the illegals. And about 80% of that population is Latino. And about 80% of that population, 80% of the Latino population, is Dominican. So it's a very majority Dominican community. The Dominican Republic is not a province of the United States like Puerto Rico is.
No, it's not.
You have to have a green card to come here.
Yes.
You have to become a naturalized citizen to stay here.
You gotta get a
like
whole
you
bunch
did.
of vaccinations. You have to wait a bunch of years.
Pay
to
a
be
lot
able
of
to
money.
Pay a lot of money.
Right.
You know, it's a lot.
As intern girl is
I did.
a legal citizen who came from the
I
Dominican
came here
Republic.
legally, green card residency.
So here's the Dominican man. What more could I say than he just said? Here's the guy who's the head of Lawrence, which, by the way, votes like 90% Democrat or 80% Democrat in almost every election, although that is changing. The last Trump election, a lot more Latinos voted for Donald Trump than voted for the Democrats. And what's really funny is that the Democrats are now spending a lot of money on consultants trying to figure out how to win those people back. And Brian DePena is giving you guys a fucking roadmap on how to get them back, is to stop the insanity on the border, is to stop the insanity of paying billions of dollars for illegal aliens while Americans are sleeping in the streets. And he addresses that in another clip that we're going to play in a few seconds. You know, you Democrats, I watch CNN all day, and as soon as the Democrats lose an election, their first default, their first go-to as a party, because CNN represents the Democrat Party, and their first default is, how do we change our messaging? Like, in other words, how to convince you what our policies are better than what you think they are. How do we convince you that our policies are good, rather than looking at the Democrat base and saying, what does the Democrat base believe? What does the American people believe? And then tailor your policies to that. Tailor your platform. You're supposed to represent the public, not the other way around. You're not supposed to convince the public to agree with you. You're supposed to take the public's position and represent it. Brian DePena is doing that. And I guarantee you he didn't lose one vote doing this. Not one. Wendy Luzon already hates him, right? And she's a big shill for the cartel. She wants every illegal alien to come. She wants more illegal aliens to come. I would be surprised if, and I love Wendy to death, so I'm just giving her a hard time, but it wouldn't surprise me if she had 12 illegal aliens in her basement. Like, that would not surprise me even a little bit. Because she is out there on TV. She's on Facebook every day. Trump is Hitler. As a Jew, by the way, I find that very offensive. Trump is Hitler. They're fascists. Look at the way they're doing this. They're sending people home. And the mayor of the city is saying, yeah, right, send people home. Send people home. That's what he's saying. Send them the F home.
The emotional part is not going to work. Maybe it worked, in 2020 when everybody was home, COVID was going on, and everybody was very emotional. But now we're in 2025. You know, things are expensive. We're all working. We're going crazy. We don't have time for all this emotional bumble-jumble crap. You know, be logic, be to the point, look out for your citizens. That's what we want.
So I'm sitting there while I'm doing this interview, and I'm thinking, wow, the state reps are really going to be pissed off by this interview. Like, even while I was in the room, I was thinking the Democrat Party is going to be mad at him. So I asked him about it.
Oh.
This is the next clip.
Oh, okay.
Is there a conflict between the government of Lawrence and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, whereby you support the feds coming in and deporting illegal aliens who are criminals, but the state is trying to keep them here? In fact, even judges are letting them out the back door. Is there a conflict between the city and the state?
No, I think that's not exactly the idea the state have protect a criminal. The political for the state is keep good immigrants, safety or continue support, but I don't think any good American resident or citizen have any interest in protect illegal immigrant crime. If you crime, you crime. Nobody support you.
But in Boston, they're supporting even the criminals. They're fighting against deporting the criminals.
Oh, that's news for me, because I think it's only support good resident, family and people doing good in Massachusetts.
So he's such a nice guy that he's willing to say publicly that he doesn't really agree with what his party's doing, but he doesn't want to poke them in the eye about it either. He doesn't want to say, Yeah, they're deporting illegal aliens. They're for not deporting illegal aliens, and they're for keeping criminals here. But I'm different.
I don't think he really cares about what his party thinks.
No,
I think
he
he's
obviously
speaking-
doesn't care.
No, because I know you keep mentioning the state reps and Beacon Hill and all of that, but at the same time, I feel like he keeps talking about the citizens
Right.
of the city.
All he cares about is what the people
people
of Lawrence think, and the people of Lawrence, 80% Dominican, or 80% Latino, and then 80% of those Dominican, want ICE in their neighborhood cleaning out the criminals. Now, there's a big break when you start talking about illegal aliens who are not criminals, and that's the next clip. But he's right. And when I talk to people in Lawrence, it's a small minority of people. Most of them are on the city council, by the way. But you have people like Wendy Luzon. I'm going to keep mentioning Wendy because she's very public about her support for illegal alien criminals. She does not want criminals sent home. She just doesn't. And I bring her up, and she's my friend, and I love her, and I endorsed her, and I'll probably endorse her again. But she's one of the people in the community that doesn't care if you're a criminal. She wants you here. That's just her political philosophy.
Just empathy.
It's how she feels. Well, listen, Brian even says it in one of these clips. He said, everyone has their own position, and that's just not my position. And I respect everybody's position, but here's how I think. And the people like Wendy are trying to impress their party. And the people like Brian are trying to impress their citizens. And Brian does not care what Joe Biden does. Look what he said about Donald Trump. And the Democrats opened a Dominican mayor of Lawrence saying that the Democrats opened the border and it made Lawrence less safe.
Why are you so surprised, though? That's the thing.
Because
you
none
have
of them
me
will
here.
say it out loud. None of them will say it out
I'm
loud.
not a political figure.
Right. If
but
you were on the city council and you said it, I'd give you a lot more credit. It's easy to say it when you're a private citizen. When we go out into the community and we talk to people at nightclubs, and we talk to people at breakfast places, and the Dominicans are all sitting there saying, I voted for Trump because I'm sick of the nonsense on the border. And that was the number one reason in Lawrence why those people voted for Donald Trump. The minute they became a city council or the minute they became a state rep, they would still feel the same way, but they would not say it out loud because there would be massive retaliation by the party. They would immediately start looking into their background. They would hire a private investigator to look at their criminal background. They would look to see if they had any kind of allegations during a previous divorce proceeding, child custody case. They would leak it to the press. Then they would find someone to run against them that came from their own hometown, that looked a lot like them, that had almost the same positions as them, and they would push them out of office. We've seen it time and time and time again. And the candidate will usually never say out loud, I'm not going to run for re-election because my party's screwing me. They'll say, I want to spend more time with my family. So you know what I do? Whenever someone's running for the first time, when your friend John Regal came in,
Yes.
do you know what the first question I asked him before we went on the air? I said, are you running because you want to spend less time with your family? And he had no idea that I was just this like running joke I have in my head, because when they resign, because their party is screwing them, and they know that, like, if I run for re-election, I can't win because now my entire party is going against me. They never will say that out loud because the party won't just screw you while you're a state rep. After you leave, if you own a hardware store, if you own a tire store, if you own a nightclub, a breakfast shop, if you own a pizza shop, they're going to find a way to bankrupt your business. They're going to make phone calls to your local board of health, and you're going to be getting visits. They're going to be measuring the door to see if it's an inch too short. We're going to shut you down. It's a very dirty, very corrupt game. And it's much worse than what you see on TV, and it's much worse than what you see on the movie, especially at the local level. And so to have a guy like Brian out there saying this is monumental. And it's monumental because he was willing to say it out loud and let a guy like me come on a podcast and play it live and play it so that the average person could hear what he says. And him saying it out loud destroys the Democrat narrative on Beacon Hill. It destroys it. Because their narrative, the Democrat Party narrative is like Jenga. If you just pull one block out, the whole thing could come tumbling down. And so all of their political beliefs, especially the fake narratives, are all based on other fake narratives. So the minute somebody blows one over or pulls one out, the whole thing collapses. And now all of a sudden, you got this one guy, and sometimes it only takes one guy, folks. Sometimes it only takes one guy.
I feel very represented by him.
Right?
Because you'd be surprised. There's actually a lot of Dominicans who are like my age, millennials, who think the same way. So it's great to see someone, in a different generation. I apologize, Mayor, speaking that way. So I appreciate that.
So I asked him By the way, we only have 5 clips today, but it was a 45-minute interview. The whole thing's going to be on YouTube later on today. And I'm pretty sure my buddy John Gately on Twitter is probably going to address it at some point. And if anybody in Boston would like copies of these clips, I'd be happy to give them to you. So I asked him, while I was sitting there, I was thinking, since we got him being candid, let's see how candid we can get him. Like, if we get him this far, let's see how far we can push the envelope. So I asked him about crime in Lawrence just since what? Huh? What? Who?
No. I said don't say what he says.
Okay.
You gotta
So I asked him about crime in Lawrence, and Trump's only been in office since January.
Yeah.
It's going to be June 1st on Sunday, right? So this is June. This is May 29th.
Yes. 4 months. 4
so
months and something.
Less than 4 months. I'm thinking you're probably not going to see a difference in crime for the first year. But let's hear what he said, because I asked him.
Has crime gone down? Have you seen crime gone down since Trump took office and ICE has come into the city? They're in every day. We see them on Facebook here somewhere, right? Have you seen crime go down in Lawrence over the last 5 months?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. 30%.
30%?
Yes.
Really? Because of the ICE raids?
Yeah.
And that's something that you're happy about. You're smiling.
Everybody, the whole community.
Right?
Yeah, the whole community.
So the Dominican community as a whole does support immigration, ICE coming in and deporting people who are criminals.
Support, yeah.
Because we have a couple of city councils who don't like that. They're all over Facebook every day complaining about that.
People complain when ICE, take it or the poor people and good people.
Yeah.
But crime, never you listen Dominican community complain because ICE take a illegal immigrant when the people have record crime. It's when the people is danger for the community. It's only the community not happy when ICE take a family, good people. People go to the school, church, or work.
Do we see that happening in Lawrence a lot? Is ICE picking up people in Lawrence that are not criminals?
Yeah.
They are?
Yeah. In case, for example, I have a mother last Tuesday, because every Tuesday people visit and don't need appointment, and she told me ICE knocking door, and when his son opened the door, asked for him, listen, I'm looking for this guy. You know who? He said, oh no, he in this moment he don't stay at home. And ICE asked, he's sleeping in the bed, and ICE asked for his documents, and the guy said, no, I'm in process. My wife submit my application for my resident. I send it to text. Yeah, and I listen couple of history. ICE looking for bad people and take one person because no can find them.
Oh, so they're looking for the bad guy, but they find other people who want bad, but they're illegal.
Yeah.
They're taking them.
Yeah, but I don't listen. ICE looking for directly one person. Is the person that have any record.
I see what you say. So they're not looking for people who want
looking
criminals.
for bad people.
But if they find them, they're going to take them.
Oh yeah.
That's called collateral.
Yeah, that's collateral.
Yeah.
That's.
So I asked him, by the way, good job, intern girl. So I also asked him, it's not in the clip, but I'm going to say, well, one of the more fascinating things that we talked about was the difference between a sanctuary city and a trust act city. I got to remember not to do this while I'm talking. What are you pointing to?
No, we actually have it on a clip.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that we had that.
Pretty sure we do. No?
I thought I cut it. All right.
Oh, maybe we didn't. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead. Sorry.
So a lot of people think Lawrence is a sanctuary city. Lawrence is not a sanctuary city. And one of the reasons, and if you talk to them off the record, they'll tell you that the police in Lawrence and the elected officials in Lawrence never correct the media when the media says Lawrence is a sanctuary city. Why is that? It's because if the criminals think Lawrence is a sanctuary city and they come to Lawrence because it's a sanctuary city, the feds can come get them. And so nobody says the quiet part out loud, Lawrence is not a sanctuary city, but it's not a sanctuary city. what they did was under Dan Rivera, they played this bait and switch bullshit where the city council got together and pretended. Can you just pull me up a little bit for some reason? I don't know why it keeps going down.
I don't know why.
So what the city council did was they played this bullshit game where they got together and they promoted that they were going to take a vote to make Lawrence a sanctuary city. But they didn't say the word sanctuary city. So they used words to describe, we're gonna take a vote to protect immigrants. And they described it to the Latino community to make it sound like they were promoting Lawrence being a sanctuary city. And they took the vote, and what the vote was, and I remember I was there that night, they voted to make Lawrence a Trust Act city. So I asked the mayor, what's the difference between a sanctuary city and a Trust Act city? And basically, here's the difference. If you're a sanctuary city and the cops pull you over and they arrest you for domestic violence, drunk driving, whatever, and they find out when they have you in custody that you are an illegal alien, they will still not notify ICE, not start the deportation process, not cooperate with the feds when they show up and say, is that guy illegal? They won't release him if they're holding him in custody, and the feds show up with a warrant and say, we got a warrant for this guy. They're still not going to release him because you're a sanctuary city. A Trust Act city means if the cops pull you over and they find out, for a traffic infraction, and they find out you're an illegal alien, they're not going to turn you into the feds. But if you commit a crime, if you beat your wife, if you're drunk driving, and they arrest you and they find out you're an illegal alien, then they will call ICE or they will allow ICE to come get you. So the reason for the distinction is this, and not that I necessarily agree with it, I'm just explaining it. The reason for the distinction is this. The mayor and the city councilors, this one and previous, didn't want people in Lawrence to be hostile to the police, thinking every time the cops pulled us over, are they pulling us over because we're illegal? Because that's how cops get killed, right? And so, I'm not saying I agree with the thinking, but this is their thinking, is that if we make it a Trust Act city, we can still deport the bad guys. We arrest a guy for beating his wife, abusing his kids, drunk driving, committing armed robbery, selling drugs, shooting at somebody, and that guy's an illegal alien. We can still deport him, but we're not going to be pulling people over and doing ICE's job for them. We're not going to pull people over, or if there's a loud party and we go to a loud party and we find that there's 10 illegal aliens, we're not going to be deporting them. It's only if they're causing crime. And if they're causing crime and they get arrested for that crime. And here's where the Democrats get it wrong. You don't need fucking due process, all right? You need to think of illegal aliens as someone on parole. And this is where the Democrats just get it wrong. Some of them because they're just not bright. Some of them because they just repeat what they see on CNN and MSNBC. And some of them because they know the difference, but they want to deceive people to get what they want. And here's the difference. If you're here as an illegal alien, think of it as somebody that's out on bail. Think of it as somebody who is on probation. If you commit a crime, you get arrested, you get convicted, you go to jail, and they let you out on parole. They let you out on work release. And you commit any crime. They catch you with a gun, you're speeding, you're drunk driving. They can go into your house without a warrant and they can get you because you're already technically in custody. Technically, you're in custody. If you're when I got arrested, when Debo and Kelly had me wrongfully arrested, I ended up beating the charges because it was bogus. But when I got arrested, I was out on bail. Now, when they arrested me, they took my guns. They took my gun permit and they took my guns. I have friends that have guns. I could have gone to my friend's house and said, hey, I need something for protection till all this silliness is over. If I got caught with that gun, there's no right to bail. They come and they get you. There's no right to a phone call at that point. They come and they get you. You're in violation of your bail, and you don't get due process.
Did you forget?
You violated your bail. You're here. You're out as a guest of the criminal justice system. When you're an illegal, you're here as a guest of the country. Mm-hmm. And so you have to think of an illegal alien as like somebody who's on bail. And if you jump bail, they can come into your house without a warrant. They can tap your phones if they want. You don't get due process because you've already had your due process. Well, if you've jumped the line and come into this country, you've had your due process, you had your chance to go through the process to come here legally, and you chose to jump the process. So guess what? If you commit a crime, we can send you the hell home. And you don't get a hearing, you don't get a trial, and nor should you. You are not a citizen of the United States. Now, if you commit a crime and we're going to prosecute you for that crime, you get due process. You get a free lawyer, you get a phone call, they have to have a warrant, all that stuff. But if we're just taking you to deport you, that's a whole separate thing. That comes under the foreign powers of the president. That comes under the what's the word I'm looking for? Anyways, I digress. So I was very shocked to hear Brian say, the mayor of Lawrence say, that crime has gone down since January 30%.
Incredible.
30%.
Because it's not only ICE that's here.
Well, that's
It's
true.
also the
Right.
DEA.
DEA, FBI.
But they're working together. You see ICE, you see DEA. So they are looking specifically for the criminals, as he said.
Now, if only the Lawrence police scanner wasn't encrypted, and I was out there every day, I could tell you whether or not that 30% number was actually real or made up. But we can't, because the previous administration encrypted their police scanner, because even though they've got cameras in every neighborhood so that the police can watch you, and they're supposed to be your public servant, they won't let you watch what they're doing. Now, think about this. Lawrence is made up of all Democrats. There's one Republican in the whole city. It's Mark LaPlante. Can't believe he still gets elected, but he does. Everyone else is a Democrat. All your city council, your school committee, your mayor, all your state reps, all your state senator, both of your congressmen and your senators are all Democrats. And what is the Democrat Party mantra? That cops are a bunch of jackbooted thugs out there to gun down black men and Latinos for fun. Just for fun, they're gunning people down. Like, just for no other reason. They're sitting around and they say, hey, let's just go gun down a black man for no reason. And the same people telling you that encrypted the police scanner so we can't watch what they're doing. So they're either lying to you. Actually, there's no or. They're just lying to you, right? There's no or after that.
Did you just pull a Trump on me? That confused me.
So when you think about the Lawrence cops, and, you know, we have some corrupt cops for sure. There's no question about it. And I've named some of them on this show. And, by the way, has not done me any favors by doing that. However, most of the cops in Lawrence are great cops. And even the bad cops, and I say this and it pisses off everybody on both sides when I say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Even the bad cops, when the gunfire starts, are running toward the bullets. When the fire breaks out, are running into the building. Yeah. When there's a car and there's a kid trapped in the car and it's on fire, he's still climbing in with his gun and his badge and all the weight that he's got and his bulletproof vest. He's still climbing into the car, putting his life at risk to get that kid out before it explodes. So the cops in Lawrence have a very difficult job. And yes, there are bad cops for sure. We've talked about it on this show and shown videos just 2 weeks ago on this show of what Mike Samad did when he tackled this poor lady to the ground.
I don't agree with you.
Right? I know you don't, and that's fine. That's what the show's about. It's not about agreeing with me. It's about making people think and challenge what they believe. But the cops in Lawrence have a very tough job. So I asked the mayor, because as he's telling me all of this, I'm thinking, well, this must make the cops' job harder, right? Because if the criminals think it's a sanctuary city and the cops aren't going to deport them, and then they start deporting them, that's going to cause problems. That's going to cause a lot of problems. And not that I want to add fuel to the fire, but I think this is something we should probably be working out.
I wish you would have told me this on the April Valley Patriot. I did an article on Sanctuary City.
Oh, you did a great job, by the way.
And it was about, like, Lawrence. But I really, really thought Lawrence was a sanctuary city.
Everyone does. Everyone does.
Until I went to this interview and I heard, what? It's not? Oh, my God. Throw away the article.
So the mayor just hired Mo Aguilar to be the police chief. Which has its own whole set of scandal attached to it. But the night that we were having to discuss, the night I did this interview, the city council was downstairs while we were talking, taking a vote to make Mo Aguilar, as I predicted, by the way, unanimously. I told you before he was nominated it was going to be a unanimous vote because the fix was in. But they were taking the vote while I was doing the interview. So I asked him, Mo Aguilar is Latino, speaks Spanish fluently. He's going to have to deal with all this nonsense now that he's going to be chief. How's that going to work? Clip number, what is that, 4?
If he gets appointed, he gets the votes tonight. Will he be working with ICE? Will he be working with the federal government? Will he, as the chief, as a Latino chief, he speaks Spanish fluently, right? Will he be working with the federal government to deport criminals who are here?
His job is follow the regulation, the laws, the federal laws, state laws, and the local charter, city charter. That's his job.
To work with the feds.
Yeah. So guess what? If you're a criminal and you're planning on going to Lawrence because you think it's a sanctuary city, pretty good chance you're going home. wherever home is, El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, Ireland, I don't care where it is, but there's a really good chance you're going home. And just because the new police chief is Latino and speaks Spanish fluently doesn't mean you're going to get anything special out of him. He's, according to the mayor, and I know Mo. I was really kind of hoping he would call me once he got in, but I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go down myself and see if I can get him on the show. I know Mo. He's a no nonsense guy, and he's not the kind of. He's not what we've had in some previous chiefs, where if you're with a certain group, if you're with a certain politician, they're gonna look the other way. If it's a certain law he doesn't like, they're not going to enforce it. I don't know where he stands on guns, and that's one of the reasons why I want to get him on here. I want to know what his thoughts are on gun permits and that kind of stuff. With a new chief, you always have to ask. I've found that guys who were cops that were very pro-gun, once they become chief, are no longer pro-gun. Like the guy in Drake was very pro-gun when he was a captain, then became chief, and then he wouldn't give permits to anybody. Because for some reason he was worried that if he gave a permit to someone that went out and used a gun to commit a crime, that he was somehow like morally responsible for it. And all of a sudden his whole philosophy changed once it was him being the guy handing out the gun permits. So it'd be interesting to get him in here and talk about the homelessness. He's worked on that a little bit. But I loved Brian's answer. Like every one of these clips is better than the last. Did I promise you that at the beginning of the show? I think I did.
Yes, you did.
I think I said that as we go along, it's going to get better and better. And I was very happy to hear him. If that was Dan Rivera, we would have had a very different answer. We would have had a Pavel Payena answer. We would have had a political doublespeak answer. Well, some people like this and some people like that, and we'll have to see. We don't know. We're going to study it. We're going to look at it. All the political gobbledygook. And Brian's just right to the point. Like he's just the answers were what the answers were. And being a guy who does this for a living, I can tell you the monumental frustration of my job is spending an hour with a politician and walking away dumber than when I sat down. Like having less of an idea of where the person stood. Like Willie Lantigua was great for this. Like I remember Willie and we used to go drinking over at Bally's, and no microphone, no camera, no anything, I'm not taking notes. We're just sitting there drinking, and I'd say, hey, let me ask you a question. Let me pick your brain a little bit. What do you think about gas taxes? Like, does that work? Does the money really go to the roads? Is it a scam? Like, what do you think in general? And he was like, well, you'd have to tell me a specific bill before I could answer that question.
Diplomatic.
I have to give you a specific bill to find out whether, like, in general, I'm not asking you to support a specific bill. I'm not going to quote you. We're just sitting here. There's no cameras. What do you think about, in general, what do you think about gas taxes? 20 minutes later, I still could not get a friggin' answer out of them. And the more drinks I bought him, the less of an answer I got. Most people, the more drinks you buy them, the more you get in them, they loosen up a little bit. You finally get an answer, even if you can't use it because you're off the record.
Why were you buying him drinks?
Well, because that's how you get people to talk.
Oh, okay.
I have a policy, and one of the reasons why politicians talk to me off the record as much as they do is that every other reporter, media person that works for the mainstream media, their policy is everything's always on the record. There's no such thing as off the record. So if you're out in a bar and you use the N-word and he hears you use the N-word and it was supposed to be off the record, they're still using it against you. Whereas I've been in situations where I remember a superintendent of schools, a Latino superintendent of schools, used the N-word after a couple of drinks one night and followed me to my car begging me not to report on it. And I said to the person, listen, I have the opposite rule of every other reporter. With me, everything's off the record, unless we say we're going on the record. And that's one of the reasons why people like Brian will tell me things off the record. People like Giovanni Rodriguez will tell me things off the record. People like DJ Beauregard will tell me things off the record. You keep pointing to you. You're not an elected official.
I'm not an elected official, but I tell you a lot of secrets that could really,
That's true. That's true. You tell me secrets. But what I'm just saying is that with politicians, you never want to say anything or do anything in front of a reporter. Even if you say off the record and they agree off the record, they're still going to use it because their policy, regardless of what they tell you, like the cops can lie to you, reporters lie to you too. And they'll tell you something's off the record just to get a gotcha moment and then use it against you and destroy your life. And so I have a very good personal relationship with all of the elected officials, which is why I'm surprised the city council screwed me on my public records request. But we're going to get to that next week. So my relationship with these elected officials is good because of that, and so they will tell me things that they wouldn't say to anyone else, especially other reporters. And I can tell you that almost all of the Latino and minority elected officials at almost every level, with the exception of Pavel. I will say he's a real believer. He thinks whatever the party says is great. But the rest of them will tell you privately that they don't believe in what they're voting for. I called one up on the transgender bathroom bill and said, you were in my office last night crying, saying to me that you didn't know how you were going to go into work tomorrow to vote because you wanted to vote no because you were afraid your party was going to kill you if you voted no. And you asked for my advice, and my advice was, then vote present or don't show up. Your mother got sick last night. Your car broke down. You ran out of gas. Just don't show up for the vote. The next day I put on TV, I'm watching the State House, and I'm watching the vote, and I'm watching, and I saw the green light go up next to her name, and I went, son of a bitch. She was so afraid. She was so petrified that her party was going to come after her. Imagine working for a company where you constantly have to worry that your boss is going to try and ruin your life. Right?
I just got flashbacks.
We don't want to say which end of a school you're talking about. But just imagine you're in an environment where the party that you're promoting, the party that you shill for, the party that you throw your credibility on the line for, when you know you're lying and you know they're lying, that you're doing it out of fear, not out of loyalty. You're doing it because you're afraid, not because you're happy to support that position. And you talk to these guys off the record, and I got to be honest with you, I always encourage them to do it anyway. Like, there's a certain state rep from Drake, and I don't want to mention any names, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, that I've on multiple occasions said that why don't you just go scorched earth and tell people that you're being threatened? You know, because once you out them, just like with Brian DePena, once one person comes forward, sometimes it opens the floodgates for everybody else who wished that they could come forward, saw how brave you were, and is now going to say, you know what, he did it, and if I do it, they can't come after all of us. And so Brian doing what he did was very brave. It also said a lot about his integrity, which most of the others don't have. But it also possibly is going to open the floodgates. And I know I'm talking too much. We have one more clip to get to. So this is, I think, my favorite clip. This is Happy. Is that this next one?
Happy.
So if you'll notice, go back and watch this once we're not live anymore. If you notice, every time I talk about illegals who are criminals being arrested by ICE, he giggles.
Yes, he does.
And so I called him on it.
But you're happy when ICE move criminal.
Right.
So happy.
You're happy. You look happy. Whenever I ask the question, you smile.
Everybody's happy because you have it, your country, you have your neighbor safety when the government remove bad people.
But you're not using the police department.
No, because that's make I think my perception that's not good because good immigrants, illegal good immigrants, don't support when the police department needs information in the community. Good illegal immigrant keep up, don't trust police because the idea is maybe police department use every information to send it to federal government, and that's not good for the community.
Wow. So we also talked a little bit. By the way, I can't say wow enough.
I know.
And I don't know what kind of comments we're getting, but if there's anybody actually watching today live, I can guarantee you that we're probably getting some pretty good comments on that.
Yeah, so we got
surprised.
Scott Punk. He says, I can't wait to see this whole interview with the mayor. In the few clips, he absolutely got my attention. Something I have not seen in a long time from an elected Democrat.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Sending on business.
we talked about a lot of other stuff, and I only brought those clips in because those were the best 5 or the best 4. We've got a feather floating around here in the studio. Those were the best 4, but we also talked a lot about, and I just want to talk a little bit about before we end the show. We also talked a lot about the difference between. I asked him, "Are you upset that your party is spending over $1 billion on illegal aliens, while you've got 300?" I asked him how many people do you have on the streets of Lawrence that are homeless. He said 300, which is the number we always use anyway, so we know that that's right. And I said, "Are you upset that the Democrat Party in Massachusetts is spending $1 billion, $1 billion, it's actually closer to 2 right now, on illegal aliens to give them luxury hotel rooms and free meals and free transportation and a $15,000 bus ride, according to Diana DeZoglio, and yet you have 300 people on the streets of Lawrence who are not getting those services. And his answer, again, you got to watch the whole thing, and it'll be up on YouTube this afternoon. The answer was stunning. He said, my party, the Massachusetts, the people in the state, don't have follow-up programs. So they have a program to get you clean if you go in and you get clean, but then when you get out, there's no follow-up program to help you get housing, to help you get job training. He said, and you know, the state is dropping the ball is basically what he said.
Yeah. He also brings up other
that
communities
was
nearby.
great.
Oh my God, I wish you would have added that to this cut.
You know,
That
we
was
can do
good.
that for next week. So
Yeah, we
so
can still do it, yeah.
one of the funnier clips, and I didn't bring it in because it was funny, but it wasn't as instructive. So I said, you know, you've got all these homeless people in Lawrence, and I'm always shilling for the Daybreak Homeless Shelter. I think they do great work. It's a wet shelter. It's one of 2 wet shelters in the state. And what that means is that if you go to a dry shelter, which is all the other ones are, except for 2, if you show up high or drunk, they won't let you in. So it could be 2 below zero and 3 feet of snow outside, and you could be shivering with no coat on in shorts, and they're still not letting you in because you're drunk or you're high. So one of the great things that Lawrence has is a wet shelter. So if you're high or you're drunk, as long as you're not violent, they let you come in. And I said, you know, and I love Karina and I love everybody over at Daybreak. They have room for 44 people. They get paid by the state for 44 people. But they take in 55 people. They take in 11 extra people every night, and they don't get paid for it, which means it's coming out of their profit. It's coming out of the money that they use to buy food and to do other things, right? For job training and financial training. They do a lot of stuff to help people like learn how to save money and start a bank account and all that stuff. And I said, you know, why won't you just take – Lawrence has over 400 abandoned properties that are owned by the city. They're tax titled. The city has taken over, and they own them. And they're sitting there, and they're not paying water bills. They're not paying taxes. They're just abandoned pieces of property that are just a blight on every neighborhood. I said, why can't you just take one building and deed it over to Daybreak, let her apply for state and federal grants so she can turn it into a homeless shelter that will accommodate the 300 people on the streets of Lawrence. Now, we know that not all of them will come in. There's always like 20% of them, maybe 30% of them that will not come out of the cold no matter what. For whatever reason, they just don't want the help. All they want is their next fix. But the rest of them will come in, and his answer was hilarious. He said, well, why doesn't Methuen build a shelter?
They have acres and acres of land.
He said they're like 10 times the size of the city. You know, Lawrence, you know, it's time for Andover to build a Daybreak. Why doesn't North Andover build a Daybreak? He said if all of these other communities were building a Daybreak, if they're all building a homeless shelter, Lawrence wouldn't have the problem that they have because most of the homeless in Lawrence are not from Lawrence. So I challenged him because I got the same bullshit answer out of Dan Rivera when he was mayor. And I say this with love to Brian. Most of the people who live in Lawrence who have homes aren't from Lawrence. Most of the people who you service in the city of Lawrence who have homes or apartments, they're not from Lawrence either. And you never use that as an excuse to say we're not going to provide you services because you're not from Lawrence. But somehow with the homeless, it's different. Somehow a homeless person who lived in Andover on North Andover on Bear Hill Road, who had a $3 million home, whose company went bust, his wife left him, threw him out, he's living in the streets. North Andover doesn't have a homeless shelter for him. North Andover doesn't have a free food pantry for him. North Andover, after spending millions of dollars in taxes over a 20-year period, has nothing for that person. Andover has nothing for that person. Methuen has nothing for that person. So if you're a citizen of those communities, as I am, and your life goes upside down and you end up homeless on the streets, where are you going to go? You're going to go to Lawrence. Why? Because that's where the Daybreak Homeless Shelter is. That's where the Methadone Clinic is. That's where the Free Needle Exchange Program is. That's where Lazarus House is. That's where Cor Unum is. That's where TMF is. That's where all of these services are. And so he said, you know, they come here because of the services. And I challenged him because I think he's wrong. They come here because of the drugs. They come to Lawrence because of the drugs, most of them. Mm-hmm. But there's an awful lot of people, he's right, who are from Andover, North Andover, Methuen, whose life got turned upside down not because of drugs, but because of circumstances. And he did classify them. He said there's two categories of homeless. There's the homeless people who are homeless because their life turned upside down, and then there's the people who are homeless because they're drug addicts and they can't function in society anymore. He said, I want to focus on the first group. And with the first group, if Methuen took care of their own and Andover took care of their own and North Andover took care of their own, our homeless population would be 1/3 of what it is. And it would be manageable. And then I'd be willing to increase services for the homeless. And I got to tell you, I think it's a wrong way to think, but it makes a lot of sense.
It does.
And my fear is that TMF, our permit at the bus station runs out next April. And my fear is that we're not going to get renewed. Even if Brian gets reelected, my fear is that we're not going to get renewed. Because I know that the police have had their eye on that building to make it a community policing building. The John Buckley Transportation Center. It's a garage upstairs. There's people that rent, spaces.
Is that owned by the city?
It's owned by the city, yeah. So we have a permit, and the police wanted to take it over, and we had a permit, so we stopped the police from taking it over. And one of the people who wanted to take it over was Mo Aguilar, who is now the chief. So it's another reason why I think he and I need to be sitting down and talking about some of these things. But getting back to Brian for a minute, wow, he's a brilliant guy.
He is.
And I know people who are English-speaking white people in Lawrence who are fed up with him because he's constantly doing videos on Facebook that are only in Spanish, and that his English is not that good. He doesn't speak English that well. It's a better way to say it, right? But once you understand him, and that's why we purposely put the words at the bottom of the screen for you. Once you understand him and you listen to his answers, I think people misunderstand lack of eloquence for being dumb. Because that guy's really smart.
He is. I was impressed.
I walked out. He talked about, I asked him at one point, do you think it's a good idea that illegal aliens get driver's licenses?
Oh, yeah.
And I expected him, because he's all for ICE, I expected him to be with me and say, no, that's a bad idea. And instead he said, it's a good idea because, you get into an accident, and if they're an illegal, they flee the scene. Even if someone's hurt, someone could die. At least we know who they are. They'll get
insurance.
They can get insurance. And not only that, but if they have a party at their house and the cops have to raid the house, they've got ID on them. We know who they are. And so it's a lot easier to identify someone as an illegal if they have an ID. But if someone's illegal and they come here, they have no ID, and you stop them on the street, they have no ID. They tell you the name is John Smith. How do you dispute that? Even if their name is, Jim O'Malley, and they're illegally here from Ireland, you can't know that if they don't have an ID. And so we walked out, and I said to the intern girl, geez, as hard right as I am, he's almost got me convinced, because that's how smart and that's how impressed I was with this interview.
I mean, it kind of, I get it, the whole license thing and not getting the proper training and all of that, but it's what his point about knowing who's who, knowing who's where, and I mean, that was huge. Yeah.
I just don't want them to use it to vote, which we all know is going to happen. That's my other problem.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to have this right-wing white guy who's originally from Lawrence but lives in North Andover, and have this dark-skinned Dominican guy who's the mayor of Lawrence who can barely speak English sometimes. He kept having a hard time with the word border, and I don't know. There were certain words that he was kind of tripping over, and I know he's very self-conscious about that. So that's why I kind of let him talk a little
bit. Spanish,
bit.
he did answer some questions. You asked him to do it in Spanish as well. So
yeah,
if you're
So if you speak Spanish, my friend Altagracia Maya. From Maji, is that how you say it?
Yeah, Maji.
I always say it wrong, I guess. I'm sorry. That's my bad Spanish. I did ask him to do each answer in Spanish, and I think he did 3 or 4 of them, not all of them.
Not of them.
But it's a 8-minute interview.
41 minutes.
It's 41?
Yeah, I didn't sleep last night watching it.
She's got to time down to the second. It's very eye-opening, and I think if you have a certain perception of Brian and you don't know him, this is going to change. It could be for better or worse.
I think it's for better.
If you're a Wendy Luzon and you're in favor of illegal aliens staying, even if they're criminals, it's going to make you maybe hate them a little bit more. But either way, I think it was very educational. We learned the difference between a trust act and a sanctuary city. The other thing that we learned that's in the full video but not in the clips, I said, how many illegals do you have in Lawrence? He said, oh, we don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? I bet you kind of know. He said, no. I said, well, when they bring their kids to the schools, they're illegal aliens because they have no social security number. You know what he said? He said, they don't need those documentations to get into the schools anymore. All they need is a birth certificate. So if their birth certificate's from the Dominican Republic, we don't know if they're here legally or illegally. Yeah. We just know they were born in the Dominican Republic. I was shocked by that answer because I was on the school committee for 3 years, and When I was there, you had to have documentation that showed that you were here legally or not, and we wouldn't deny a kid education because they were here illegally, but we wanted the numbers. We wanted to know who to service. A lot of times when I was on the school committee, if we had kids in the system whose parents were here illegally, we could at least help them get services so that if they didn't know how to get health care, if they didn't know how, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but this is what the schools did. Yeah. The schools would find those who were not here legally and then help them get food if they needed food, if they had food insecurity, the new Democrat buzz phrase. If they're having a hard time finding a place to live, if they're having a hard time with other aspects of life, if they wanted to become a citizen, there was a way through the school system you could go through the school system to the immigration process to help become a citizen if that's what you wanted.
They have things in place now, though. They have a parent liaison at every school.
Do they do? Yeah.
They do. So, they're pretty much there to support the parents. Parent liaisons also have, they're able to go to homes, visit homes, like, without calling or anything during school time and really support families with anything they need. So.
Yeah, so I was a little surprised by that, and I think he said unfortunately when he said it. I think he said unfortunately we don't ask for
I don't want to quote him. I don't
Duggan's.
remember exactly.
But either way, we learned a lot. And if I learned a lot, this is what I do for a living. I think the average person watching that is it's going to be on my YouTube channel probably within about an hour after we go off the air. This will also be up within an hour after we go out on the air, although I do have somewhere to go after this, so it might be 2 hours after. But it will be up today or tonight. I want to say hi to my friend John Gately, who does a great podcast on Twitter. And I'm going to be having a conversation with him later about whether or not it's worth paying for the blue check mark to do that. Because I think we could really increase our audience.
We have more of our people on X, like me and you.
Oh,
like,
okay.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
But
there's more.
most of my audience is Facebook.
Yeah,
right. So we get an average of about 5,000 people a week.
It is,
watch.
but that's local people. If you want to reach a wider audience that has, the right wing, how you say, it's definitely X. So, if you're talking about national news, that's where you want to be.
Right. Now, you were recently on a podcast in Boston. It was all in Spanish, though, so I couldn't understand a lot of it. You were recently on a podcast, I think it was in Boston, where you guys were talking about, like, dating and, like...
Oh, no, that's the Cápsula Roja podcast.
Say that again. That was so sexy.
Okay.
I love that. Say it again.
Cápsula Roja podcast. Yeah, we talk about dating and money and sex and all of this stuff.
How come I never get invited on the fun stuff?
I told you to come.
All the stuff I get invited on is like boring political stuff.
No, we talk about a lot. We compare like nationalities. Like the other day, we were comparing the Colombian women with the Puerto Rican women, saying that the Colombian women are sweeter and the Puerto Rican women are like feistier, but they're better in other things. And
Colombian women are hotter.
You think so?
But there is no Latino woman hotter than the Dominican women.
Really?
There's no women hotter than the Dominican women.
Oh.
There's no comparison.
And they say
I've dated 2 Dominican women in my life, and let me tell you, now you really good chance you're gonna get something thrown at you at some point during the relationship.
That's not true.
But, yes, it is.
That is not true.
Yes, it is.
Don't listen to Tom. That's not true.
Bottles of ketchup. And
let me tell you something. Latin America says Dominican women are the ugliest.
No, not even
but
close.
You know what it is?
No, it's not even close.
We have style, okay?
No, that's not it
We
either.
have poise.
No, it's
yes,
not that
we do.
either. No, it's not.
We are just sexy. Like, we're just...
You're sexier, for sure.
Yeah, we're like sexy. Like, it just comes out of our pores.
Better cooks.
Yes.
Sexier. And
nice bodies.
I like curvy women.
The best bodies
in
Latin America, Dominican.
I love
sorry
curvy
to
women.
Say it.
Yep. And the bigger the better. You know how many times I'll say to someone, you need to eat more hamburgers?
Yeah.
I need to lose weight. And I'll go, lose weight, you need to eat more hamburgers. What are you talking about?
I have
But I never get invited to these fun podcasts where we get to talk about dating.
I told you to come and stuff. But you're going to talk about, like, strong stuff. Because the stuff that I be saying there is stuff.
Listen, I won't hold back,
Spanish.
but I guarantee you're going to be getting complaints by the time I'm done.
Oh, yeah? No. They like that. They like that. So we have Catherine Chang. She said, you're in trouble now, Tom. And John Regal is watching. Can you say his last name?
Regal.
John Regal.
Regal. I really hope that guy's got a shot.
Me too. He's working so much. We were talking last night, like 2 a.m. He's like, you're working? I'm like, yeah. You too? He's like, yeah. He's always. Yeah.
I'm hoping. He's making some rookie mistakes, but I think it's because he's a rookie. I think if he gets in, he's going to be fine. Yeah. And I got to tell you, I'm not to pivot away, and we'll end the show shortly, but I'm really disappointed, and I shouldn't be. All my friends say, why are you surprised that members of the city council, when Brian endorsed candidates in the last election, he went 5 for 9. when a certain other friend of mine who's an elected official was endorsing people for city council, they were 4 for 9. I was 9 for 9. Every single person sitting at that table, I endorsed, including Wendy Luzon, including Giovanni Rodriguez, including Stephanie Infante, and I go right down the list, Greg Del Rosario, even Fidelina Santiago. And Brian DePena endorsed the guy running against Fidelina, and my candidate, Fidelina, won. He endorsed the woman running against Wendy Luzon, and I endorsed Wendy Luzon. And his candidate lost, and my candidate won. I endorsed 9 of the 9, which, by the way, is not unusual for me because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you know what you're doing.
But yet, when
you are the Valley Patriot.
When the city attorney tried to charge me $11,000 fucking dollars for public records to try and stop me from getting public records, I wrote an editorial, and not one of them picked up the phone. Not one of them tried to help. Then I wrote a second editorial for May, calling for Tim Hooten to be removed as city attorney because he's purposely using costs to deny me public records, and not one of them picked up the phone to help. And I finally reached out to one of them and said, you're supposed to be my friend, and I haven't heard from you. You know what's going on. And this person who, I'm not going to disparage them personally, but I'll say this. When they needed help, came to me, and I had no problem helping them and never asked for anything in return. And I'm not asking for a favor. I'm asking you to do your fucking job and hold the city attorney accountable for allowing people to get access to public records. That's your job. And this counselor, instead, picked up the phone, called the city attorney, listened to the bullshit he spun to her, and then took his side. And has ghosted me, has not even had the courtesy to answer a text message, has not even had the courtesy to call me back. And so it's an election year. And my friends are all saying, Tom, why does it surprise you? They're politicians. As much as you think they're your friends, they're politicians first. They care about themselves first. They care about being part of the inside crowd first. Yes, you've said it many times to me, too. Like, these are people that don't care about you as much as they care about their political, their ranks in the political status. And so I'm very surprised. But I did have an off-the-record conversation with City Council President Giovanni Rodriguez on Saturday, and I think we have an understanding.
Okay.
And I think things are going to start changing, especially since the Secretary of State has now ruled that the City of Lawrence cannot charge me $11,275 for 2 years of emails for crybaby Kelly Frazier. And
Gaza.
He said Gaza. I'm in fear of my life. I did get an email last night from Attorney Tim Hooten, who, with any luck, is about to be former Attorney Tim Hooten, at least former City Attorney
Who
Tim
was
Hooten.
it that left? The other one?
Kevin Foley resigned the day after
Kevin,
my last editorial.
yes.
That was a smart thing to do. Like, that was actually the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, rather than go to war with me, just step aside and let Hooten take all the arrows. So Hooten sent me an email saying, well, I got the letter from the Secretary of State's office, and can you narrow the search terms so that we can just give you what you're looking for? Because I mentioned in my emails that one of the things I'm looking for is we know that she illegally got overtime, and I want the emails that have to do with that.
And she also got help.
Well, from him.
Yes.
But so he sends me a thing saying, well, to narrow your search, can we just do a search for any emails that have to do with her getting overtime? And I wrote back, no, because that's only one of the things I'm looking for. Just because I mentioned that in my email to the Secretary of State's office, because you're involved, doesn't mean that's all I'm looking for. I'm looking for other stuff. And he says, and his email said, well, I went through the first 4 or 5 emails, and the second or third email I went through had information about a handicapped minor that's going to have information redacted. And I'm thinking, why would a homeless coordinator have information about a handicapped minor? She's a homeless coordinator. Right. Well, that's exactly correct. That's what I wrote back. I said, well, now that you've told me that, that's exactly what I want. You can black the kid's name out, but I want to know what that was all about, because if this has to do with a minor who's handicapped, that service should be going through the school department, not through the homeless coordinator. Now,
maybe she was playing hero while she was there, trying to help everybody, be a community advocate.
That's it, because she cares so much. Yeah, okay. So the Secretary of State ruled in our favor. It's not going to go well for the City of Lawrence. It's not going to go well for City Attorney. he's going to play this game for a little while longer because they always follow the same pattern.
You should always copy the Secretary of State's office on every single
Yep,
response.
you're right.
You
But
have
they
to
all,
add
but
them
they all
to
follow.
everything.
They all think they're freaking geniuses, but they all follow the same pattern. Once they get spanked by the Secretary of State, then they start to cooperate, but they still resist a little bit and pretend that like what they were trying to do with the first place was really well-meaning. And they. So I assume that my next bill that I get is going to be $5,000. And then when I go to the Secretary of State with that and they get spanked again, then it's going to be full compliance because that's the way it always works in every community. I remember Superintendent Hoddle here in North Andover trying to charge me $70,000 for emails for, if I can remember her name, she was a principal here in the schools. She was coordinating, there was a ballot measure, and she was using school computers to campaign for a ballot measure that would bring more money in for the schools, which means she would make more money.
Okay.
And she was using her public email and her public laptop in the school. Like she was literally in the schools.
Maybe the money was for resources for the children.
For the children, right. Yeah, so she could
Hello.
have a second pool.
So John Regal actually wrote, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Tom, those people don't have a backbone. They're too afraid and two-faces.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's absolutely true, and I hate to say it. But I have to tell you that there's one city council that I really like as a human being a lot. And I just, the fact that she ghosted me the way she did, and at one point she's got this righteous indignation, well, you're threatening to sue the city. Yeah, I'm threatening to sue the city. If a DPW worker is drunk driving and hits a kid, don't you think that kid's parents should sue the city?
Yeah.
But they have this mentality, and they get, because they're not that bright when they get elected, they don't understand how things work. They have no life experience. They've never actually owned a business or had a real job. They get in there and they get co-opted by the insiders to think that their job is to protect the insiders. But they couch it under you're protecting the city. And so we're going to stop the city from being sued. But there are times when the city needs to be sued. Scott Wood sued the city. Scott Wood got screwed. Wendy Luzon slandered the crap out of him all over Facebook, thinking that she could get some political points on it. And my understanding, I mean, I haven't talked to Scott probably since the night of the bash. My understanding is that Lawrence lost a lot of money on that suit. Once this is over, I'm going to leave you guys with this because we're way over time. Once we get finished with this public records request on Kelly Burchill Frazier, Crybaby Kelly, the next set of public documents we're going to be asking for is, and John Regal, you should be doing this too. I should not be the only one doing this. You and anybody running for city council should be submitting today, send an email to the city attorney's office. Actually, send it to the city clerk so that there's a record so he can't pretend he didn't get it. Send an email to the city clerk asking for copies of documents showing how much money the city has spent in legal fees and paid out on legal cases. Because not only did we have Attorney Hooten and Attorney Foley, who were the city attorneys,
Making over six figures, probably.
making all kinds of money to do not a whole lot, but also the city pays outside law firms to represent us in those cases where the city attorney is not competent enough to do it, which is most of them.
So why don't you just have a coordinator to, like, handle those things and be the communication from the city to these places,
I think
law offices?
that city attorneys in general have outlived their usefulness. I don't think we should have city attorneys anymore. They're usually the guys.
Useful.
They're usually the guys that graduated at the bottom of their law class.
Stop.
I'm just being honest. If you're a good attorney, you're working for KP Law and you're making $1 million a year. You're not working
You're
for
a
the city of
partner?
Lawrence. You're working as a criminal defense attorney. You're working in the DA's office. You're not working for your municipality and going to zoning board meetings to talk about stop signs. You're just not. And if you look at all the city attorneys in the Merrimack Valley, some of them are very nice people. However, most of them, if you look them up, graduated toward the bottom of their class, couldn't get a job at a real law firm, not really all that competent in a whole lot, but they're very nice people so that they can schmooze the politicians into getting a job and keeping a job, getting on the public dole, and then shilling for the insiders and doing what they want so that you continue getting a paycheck. And I was really surprised to see Kevin Foley was a city attorney in Lawrence when we started going down this road. I thought he was a much better lawyer than that. So once I heard he was a city attorney, kind of made me think a little bit differently about his competency as an attorney. we see that Methuen just got rid of their city attorney, and I wish I could remember his name. Cassini. They just get rid of their city attorney. That's the guy that when I asked for all of the overtime for the DPW workers last year, in writing, sent me, I'm going to bring that in next week. Remind me, I'm going to bring it in. Sent me an email in writing saying that the pay of DPW workers is not a public record. Those are not public documents. In writing. So I didn't even have to email the Secretary of State's office. I got them on speed dial. So I speed dialed my buddy who used to work at the Eagle Tribune, who works at Secretary of State's office, Public Records Division, and said, I just want to read something to you out loud, and I want you to tell me how bad of trouble this guy is in. And I read the email. I wasn't even done reading, and he said, what's that guy's number? That day, he got a phone call from the Secretary of State's office demanding that within 24 hours he turn over.
Was he the one that gave you Rita Christine's emails as well?
No, he was gone by then.
Okay.
Yep, he was gone by then. Because if I had to try and get Rita Christine's emails while he was there, he would have run interference. And this is the other thing the city attorneys do. They play these interference games where, so if you say I want the overtime of let's say the top 5 paid city employees for the school system, that's going to ruffle a lot of feathers, right? Because people who are making a lot of money don't want everyone to know that they're making a lot of money. And so the city attorneys will be like, well, you asked me for something, but I need clarification. Now that clarification, them asking for clarification pushes off them having to answer you 10 more days. So then they'll say, well, I think this might cost about $5,000 to do. That's a lot of documents. And then most people will just go, I can't afford $5,000 and give up and go away. But they, as Bugs Bunny once said, you don't know me very well. I don't go away. That's why at the beginning of the show, it's he's not gone, he's never gone. I'm not gone, and I'm not ever going to be gone. As long as I'm drawing breath on this planet, when I ask for public records, I'm going to get the damn public records, and I'm not spending $11,000 or $5,000 or $1,000 for those records. I'm going to get them. And the grift that I'm hearing from City Attorney Hooten is that they have to pay an individual. This is what the Secretary of State, when I talked to them on the phone, could not understand. So he made me repeat it 3 times. What Tim Hooten is trying to say, and he said it in writing, is the reason he's trying to charge me so much is that they have to pay someone to physically read all 15,000 emails to see what needs to be redacted, which is total bullshit. Because anybody who knows how to use Word, anybody who knows how to use Adobe PDF, can do a search for the phrase Social Security number and replace it with XXX. You could search for the term date of birth or DOB, and then put in the function to X out any number after where it says DOB. Anywhere where it says medical information, you can X it out. And you don't have to read 15,000 emails. You can do it all with one search and replace. When I'm working on the paper and I spell somebody's name wrong, it happened just last month, I wrote a story, I spelled the guy's name wrong everywhere. In the headline and in the story, I spelled it wrong. It needed an E. It didn't have an E. My editors called me and said, you spelled this guy's name wrong. That's going to take a lot of time for you to go through and change each one. No, it's not. You do search and replace. Everywhere where I spelled this guy's name without an E, you type in it, you said, look for this word, look for this name, and then replace.
That's actually the old school way to do it. Now it's AI.
Like, I shouldn't even have to explain this to a fucking attorney. But he's trying to say that they need a dedicated employee, that they're paying $25 an hour to read through 15,000 emails, and that's why it's going to cost $11,000.
So what happened with his salary, his regular salary?
Right, well, this is my argument to Giovanni Rodriguez, who at least was nice enough to have a conversation with me about this, and that's that if these people are already being paid by the public and these documents are already being paid for by the public, and they were written on public government computers in public government offices by public government employees being paid for by the government, and the Xerox machines that they use to make copies are paid for by the government, why do we have to pay anything to get copies of these documents? And by the way, let's go back to my original question that John Regal and the rest of these guys should be asking. How much money has Tim Hooten cost the city? How much money did Kevin Foley cost the city? How much has the city paid out in lawsuits? And I don't just mean lawsuits that you've won or lost. When they settle a lawsuit, they try to pretend that what they settled the lawsuit for is part of a non-disclosure agreement. The amount is not. If you're writing a check for somebody, you have to disclose that amount. You have to disclose that this is we're paying this police officer who sued us for overtime. Here's what we're paying him. You don't have to disclose the reason. You don't have to disclose the other terms. But you have to disclose what you paid them. I want to know how much the city has wasted in the last 4 years in lawsuits and legal fees because of corrupt or incompetent city attorneys. That's what I want to know. And every single one of you guys should want to know that too, because if they deny my public records request and I have a podcast and a newspaper to fight back, what do you think they're doing to the average guy?
Yeah. So John Savastano said, fight the good fight. Keep your foot in their ass, grab a shovel, and bury them in print.
Yeah. It's an election year. I want to
Maybe they
remind
need-
my friends on the city council. It's an
Maybe
election
what
year.
the city needs, not an attorney. Maybe they just need a consultant,
Right.
right? Maybe a consultant might work. So
Yeah.
I think we have to get going. So
Yeah.
why don't we
The
thank
kids
our
want to use the
sponsors?
studio.
Yeah.
All right, let's do that.
There we go.
Let's roll up. By the way, I promised you a good show. Was that the show I promised you?
Oh, yeah.
Sure it was. We'll know like by tomorrow night when we bounce up to like 5,000 hits on the video.
Yeah. John Mercad's video got like 1,000.
Yeah, he's really good.
He did really good.
Yeah. All right, let's thank our sponsors. Free show to JG's Ice Cream, who, by the way, won Taste of Methuen Best Dessert. They were the best. Enterprise Bank, W3ON Website Development, Prime Insurance, the Duggan Law Office, AFC Urgent Care, having lunch with Zachary in about an hour. Looking forward to that. Clear Path for Veterans New England, Pleasant Valley Landscaping Contractors, Tomo and Shaken Seafood, EIS Investigation and Gun Training. We just hired them to investigate the Eagle Tribune.
Yes.
We're investigating all of their employees. Anything that they've got in their background, we're going to be publishing. Marston and Son Construction, Zadie Pesci Law Office, and Century 21 McLennan Real Estate. We love Matt. We're going to get him in to talk about real estate stuff. But it sounds like Melvin Taylor says we got to go home. Did he say that? He did, so go home already.